Okay, point to the Great Lakes.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jessica Smith and I help you simplify home education so you can work wonders in your home. Today, I'm going to talk to you all about geography. We're going to talk about the principles behind it. We're going to talk about the how to teach it, and what you should be teaching. Now, geography is a fascinating subject because it's kind of a melting pot or an intersection for a lot of different subjects like history, nature study, culture, politics. Lots of things that contribute or can be attributed to geography. And that also makes it kind of hard to decide what to teach, which topics or subjects would go in geography versus history or nature or even science. So how can you decide what to teach? Well, Charlotte Mason she has a quote that I think really boils down the principles of what to teach and how to teach it. She said, the peculiar value of geography lies in its fitness to nourish the mind with ideas and to furnish the imagination with pictures. So with those two principles, with nourishing the mind with ideas and to furnish the imagination with pictures, that is how Charlotte Mason, or she used those to decide what to teach in her schools, and it's what I use to guide my teaching for my own family. So I'll go over how Charlotte taught in her schools, how she taught geography, and then I'll talk about how I've adapted that for my family and show you some books and resources that I use. So first thing, in grades 1 through 3, that's kind of dedicated to concrete learning and engaging the child's mind, really furnishing them with a lot of pictures, imagination with pictures. So Charlotte started out with her book that she wrote called Elementary Geography. And honestly, it's a classic in Charlotte Mason education for a reason, because it's just really good. There is a lot of older language, and we do have a lot of updated knowledge on geography. I wouldn't say that her book has any wrong information, as much as just it's missing a lot of information that we now have. So I like to supplement her elementary geography with this book, A Child's Introduction to the World. So she taught with elementary geography. And that just gives children an introduction to the planets and our Earth. It kind of works from out in, and children get an idea of direction. And she added a lot of concrete activities or exercises to help them see that the sun is going to be different height, and it's going to be a different position in the sky based on the seasons, just as an example. And a lot of those activities are in this book, Outdoor Geography. So she had her students do that. She had them do a lot of geo-trots, which is just going on hikes, but instead of just noting the plants and animals like you would do on a nature walk, you look at the hills and the streams, because if they can get an idea of the small geography, hills and streams, they're going to understand better mountains and rivers, or even lakes are very much like oceans. There's going to be islands and shores. And so kids get an idea of their local geography first so that they can imagine the bigger picture or bigger things of geography of the world. So that's what you start out with. They also learn how to make a map of a stream or a map of a pond or a park by measuring, taking strides or measuring with feet, and then making very simple maps of those. They do that because that's a good foundation before they begin map questions and map work when they turn 10 years old. So in 4th grade, which approximately is 9 to 10 years old. So 9 to 10 years old, they would begin learning about more countries, going more in depth about countries and continents, learning the geography. They would then read books on travel logs by adventurers and travelers, and then they would map those routes on a map. They also begin map work, which I mentioned a little bit ago, and map drills or map questions. Really what that is you are having the child look at a map and you ask them questions. For example, which body of water lies to the east of the United States? Which body of water lies west of the United States? And you can even zoom in and do that on a much smaller scale of the eastern United States, the southern, the Midwest, so that they can see mountain ranges, they can see rivers. So you just ask them lots of questions based on that map that they're looking at. And once they've done that, then you ask them the questions without looking at the map. So they have to close their eyes and imagine that. That's a big thing in Charlotte Mason education, is being able to imagine things using their mind and creating pictures in that imagination. So they do that with looking at the map. They ask questions, you ask questions to them, they answer them while looking at the map. Then you ask them questions without looking at the map. And then they fill out the map, and that's map work. So they're going to look at an empty map of the United States, if that's what you're studying, or just a region of the United States. And then you have them fill out the rivers, the bodies of water, the states, the mountain ranges, whatever you ask them questions about, they're going to fill that out based on their memory. So that's map work, and map drills would be asking them questions as they look at a map. Now, I forgot to mention for Form 1, so the first to third grade, that goes along with the concrete learning, is children are going to make models of hills and rivers, different land and water forms. So they're going to make that in sand or with clay. First do that, and then paint watercolor versions of the land and water forms, which is a very Montessori thing. There's cards, and it has a lake, and then it has an island, because those are opposite land and water, or land and water forms. And so I have my children make those with clay or with sand, and then I have them paint their own cards with green and with blue watercolor, so that they have their own little card, and it goes through island and a lake, an isthmus, a strait, a peninsula, a bay, and goes through all of those land and water forms. Because later when they're doing their map work and map drills, I will say, what is this isthmus called, or this strait between Spain and Africa? They're like, oh, the Strait of Gibraltar, right? And they're going to know what that is. So again, Form 1 is creating, you're laying a good foundation with concrete knowledge through these activities. And then in Form 2, they are going to be doing more abstract things with a map. And it's so important that you know what a map is, that it's representing these hills, it's representing these bodies of water and land, and that it is very precisely measured out. And so that comes from them making their own maps and making these land and water forms with clay or with sand. So that is Form 1 and Form 2. Forms 3, 4, and through high school, so pretty much middle school and high school, they are going to be doing a lot more learning about geography, the geography of countries that are in the news and current events. So they're going to be reading the news or any kind of current event. I mean, nowadays we have podcasts and we have magazines. My kids really like The Week Junior. And there's also a lot of good resources out there for high schoolers that maybe you wouldn't want to use for elementary school kids. But they're going to be reading about what's happening in current events. They're going to look at the map, and they're going to learn more about that area. And then they can do written narrations or oral narrations about what they've learned between kind of looking at the geography of that place and what's happening and the politics and how those are affecting each other. They're also going to do a little bit more advanced cartography, and they're going to read more books that are going to take just a deeper dive into the physical geography of the world. And there's a few different books that Charlotte Mason used, and ones that homeschool moms recommend today. There's Physical Geography, and I can't remember the name of the author. Don't worry, all of these links are going to be in the description box. But there's Physical Geography. One book that I am reading right now that I think would be a really good book for this is called Prisoners of Geography. So just the way that you understand geography is going to help you understand current events. So Prisoners of Geography is a really good book, I think, for high school students to read. So I'm planning on signing that for my boys. So that's how Charlotte Mason taught geography in her schools. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I teach geography with my kids, how I've adapted it. And I've thrown a little bit here and there as I talked about her method, but I'll go into more detail right now. So with my first graders, we go over Children of the World. It's kind of a sample of world geography and culture, and we do this through helping them see children around the world and kind of how they live and comparing that to how your child lives. So I really like this book, Children Just Like Me. I would consider it a living book, but it could be better. So it could be really considered textbooky. I'm just going to show you a sample of this. I'm sure most libraries have this. Now, we just read about the child, talk about what they like to do, what they eat, talk about where they live. So we look it up on a globe map. I really like this one for first grade. And another book that I really like for first grade to help them introduce them to the world is this book, Maps. And it has each country, and it has pictures of the mountain ranges. It has landmarks. It has food and all kinds of cultural things in this one. So those are the two books that I like the most for first grade. And I like to use documentaries. And that's one big thing that differs between how I teach geography and how Charlotte Mason taught geography. Now, would Charlotte Mason use documentaries? That's the big question. How much technology would Mason have used in today if she had access to that? My opinion is, especially for geography, the principle being that we want to furnish the imagination with pictures. I think that documentaries are one of the best ways, because when I'm reading a book, at least I'm not great at auditory, so listening to a book read or even reading it, I am imagining only what I can imagine. And so if a child's never seen what a jungle looks like or the Sahara Desert, reading them a book about what it is, it's going to be harder for them to imagine that. Now, if you're reading a fiction or a fiction book, or you're reading a fantasy book, that's fine. It's good for them to imagine that. It's really good for their imagination to have to build those pictures. But when we're talking about a real place, I want my child to know what that actually looks like. And so I like to use documentaries. One of my favorite documentaries for first grade, and you could even extend that longer to second and third grade, is called Dangerous Ways to School. It's free on YouTube, so I watch it with my kids. I don't just leave them there with the computer on YouTube alone, but we watch it together. And I love this series because it just follows school-aged children through their day and getting there on their way to school. Now, it just shows children of countries that have dangerous ways to school. That's why I like to add the book Children Just Like Me. But it's such a living resource, in my opinion. It follows these children, and my children love these series. It's really good for them to watch. Now, I break it up. I don't watch the whole 45-minute to an hour documentary in one sitting. I break it up by about 10 to 15 minutes, and I like to have them look at a map of where that child was or lives. So that's what we do for first grade. And then we also read, like I said, the Elementary Geography by Charlotte Mason, and I add this one to it. I love this book because it teaches latitude and longitude. It teaches maps, talks a lot about maps, as well as Charlotte Mason's book. And then I love this one, The Ups and Downs. It talks about what a valley is versus a plateau and a hill and a mountain. And about at this point, I have them use clay or sand to make those landforms. and then water forms as well. The next page is the water forms. So I really like this book and the visuals that it gives children, and I add that to elementary geography. Now, after first grade, the child has a good introduction to children around the world and some cultures. We like to add some picture books and some folk tales just to make it more fun and give them an introduction to the cultures of the world. Then after that, then they just come in to our family's geography rotation. So instead of having, like Charlotte had her 4th through 6th graders do American geography, and then, well, it would be British geography because that was where she lived, but you do your child's country and the regions in that country, so it would be America for me. So I don't do that. I just have all of us learn geography at the same time, or studying the same countries and continents at the same time. So I just do a 6-year rotation because the Arctic, Antarctica, we study at the same time, and then I add Australia to that, and so they're all in 1 year. And then I have North America with an emphasis on America, and then Asia, Africa, Europe. And so we do those 6 years, and so they do it twice during their 12-year time. So hopefully this is making sense. So 6-year rotation of doing a continent for each year, and we study the countries in those continents. And so what we'll do is we will watch documentaries about it. Some of my favorites are Human Planet, Planet Earth. Those ones are really good for more for nature, but there's some good episodes that I will add in. Human Planet, again, is one of my favorites. However, you need to be careful and pre-watch them because your family may not be comfortable with some nudity. There's just different cultures that it's okay to have a lot less clothing than ours. So just be aware of that and watch it beforehand to make sure that it is in line with your family's values or what you're comfortable with. So Human Planet is awesome. It just talks about how people have adapted and just learned to live in different areas of the world. And then I like to add it's called From Above series. Right now they have Europe from above and Asia from above. I'm hoping, are going to do Africa and South America from above. What it does is it goes through each country and has drones that go over, and the narrator talks about the geography throughout the seasons, and it's wonderful. My boys love it. We have watched most of Europe last year because Europe was our continent that we studied last year. And so what I'll do is I will have them do map questions or map drills before we watch the documentary. Now this requires me to watch the documentary and know which regions we're going to be watching. We only do about 15 minutes of the documentary. So I'll say, all right, we're going to be looking at this country, and so I'm going to write down, or I use ChatGPT to brainstorm questions for that country. Then I ask my children those questions while they look at a map. Then we go watch about 15 minutes of the documentary. And once we have done the whole country and watched the whole documentary about it, then they will fill out a blank map. And this process can take a couple weeks. Just depends on how long you spend on the documentary each time. So that is what we do for learning about the country. We also like the book Richard Halliburton's Book of Marvels. There's the Occident and the Orient, and those have they're just really fascinating stories from his own travels. He doesn't have stories for every country, and so we'll add those stories in if we happen to have, if we're studying that country that he has a story about. So those are some of our favorite resources for geography. Now, for outdoor geography, which is what Charlotte Mason had, and map making with children. So she did not have map making with children, but these I have had a harder time fitting in, just to be honest. We have really just been doing the bare minimum the past year because of my baby being born last year. So we have kind of dropped these, but when I was doing them really well, I would try to do one of these a month. and they go from easiest. So I've written Form 1. These are good things to do in Form 1. Easier to, I would say, Form 3. It just requires a lot more science and math to do these. And so what you could do is just do one of these a month. You could even just do 1 or 2 a term, because there's so many. And if you're doing a 6-year rotation, you're going to be able to only have to do these every once in a while. But I must warn you, your children will love them. My boys have loved the outdoor geography. They've especially loved map making with children. And this is something that I like to do only about once a month, but my boys love these activities. The map making for children, or map making with children, they just have really good ways to lay a foundation of concrete knowledge of maps and how they're made. So these ones, I only look at 2 activities, about 2 or 3 activities per term. I just write them out and put a reminder to do them for geography that day. And again, I will have all of these resources linked in the description box below. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more of these videos where I talk about subjects and how to teach them.